There's a lot of books that I can recommend to pharmacists to read that is going to better their pharmacy knowledge, to help their personal development, and a lot of them are kind of boring to read, I'm not gonna lie. I've read plenty of self-development books in my time, but sometimes you want to read something that's more fun. Actually, the majority of the time I want to read something more fun. But this book, Illusion of Stars by Sarah Marie Page, gives you the option of self-development with a ring of fantasy and a touch of pharmacy, and I highly recommend it. This is the first book in a duet, so there is a second book that has not been written and it's coming out, and this does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, so you've been warned right there. And it was recommended to me from one of my best friends. She actually got an advanced reader copy, so an ARC, and she read it and told me I needed to read it myself because she loved it. And so it's been on my TBR for a while, and then the audiobook came out and I was looking for an audiobook. And I am so glad I listened to the audiobook because J.C. Pryor does a fantastic job of narrating Izzy, and then there's also a small scene from the male main character's point of view. His name is Eric, and that was recorded by Rusty Muha. And they both do a great job of bringing these characters to life. So who exactly is our main character, Izzy? Well, Isabel is an 18-year-old and she wants to become the royal physician. And you might be thinking, Sierra, this is a physician, not a pharmacist, but just trust me on this. There's a lot of pharmacy elements. I'll get to them in a moment. Izzy is currently an apprentice to the royal physician, and she is in competition with Stefan. And Stefan seems to be doing better because he gets to take care of the king, and she's stuck taking care of the queen and her really gross feet. And she's just really hoping that she can do something to make a difference and move her forward. But all of her plans go awry whenever her best friend is murdered and she seeks vengeance. She is mad about why this happened and she believes she knows who did it, but they just have to get proof. And they also have to get proof of what this enemy kingdom is trying to do to them. And unfortunately, she's in a very small island kingdom that doesn't have a lot of support, and that includes no spies. And so when Izzy starts looking for answers, she's kind of voluntold that she's going to spy for the kingdom. And she's going to go on this quest with them as they're looking for something. She doesn't know what it is. She's trying to figure that out and figure out what weapon they're going to use against them. The only problem is, Izzy is a terrible spy. Like, absolutely terrible. Like, really, really bad. And so she's trying to spy. She's also trying to seduce Eric, which is the general's son. And she's wanting to learn more about their magic because Eric is the best at illusion magic. And she goes through this entire storyline trying to be a spy. He knows she's a spy. He knows she's a bad spy. And what she discovers, the further and deeper she gets, the more she learns that everything that she thought was true about her kingdom may be a lie. It actually kind of shocked me to learn that this was not written by somebody with a medical background, but somebody who's actually a lawyer. So Sarah Marie Page does a great job of incorporating medicine throughout this because Izzy is trying to be an apprentice to the royal physician. There is a lot of medical scenes in this book, but they're fantasy medical scenes. However, on Izzy's island, they don't have magic, so Izzy relies on a lot of quote-unquote traditional medicine and herbs and plants, and so there's even an apothecary inside the castle, and so Izzy spends a lot of time focused on that, and it turns out the medicine side of things ends up being a big part of the plot. So as a pharmacist, I loved hearing about, oh, we're going to use these plants to treat this, we're going to use this as poison, but we are going to use this as an antidote. And so there was a lot of fun medical themes throughout this book, even though it's fantasy. I also found that this magic system was pretty unique. I hadn't seen the use of illusions like this before, but that's a big part of it. And there's also some fortune telling, seeing the future, that plays a big role in the story as well. And while the magic system is pretty integral to the plot, it's not so difficult to understand that it leaves readers confused. Like, I was able to follow the magic system really well. From a romance standpoint, this is a little bit steamy. It's fade to black. It is not too in-depth, but does give readers a good amount of romance throughout this. A lot of tension between the characters that is well written. Now, some things that I absolutely loved about this book, aside from the apothecary and medicinal themes throughout. Izzy is a terrible spy, and she is so relatable in that sense because she is an apprentice to the royal physician. It would be like me as a resident being asked to be a spy. Like, I would be terrible at that. And Izzy is terrible at that, and so it makes her so relatable because you're like, well, yeah, if I was thrown into that position, I wouldn't do well either. Izzy's also super awkward in several different moments, and her awkwardness is just super funny to me and feels very realistic. I also loved her horse, Buttercup. That's all I'm going to say, but if you read this, I hope you enjoy Buttercup as well. I also really liked the development that went into the side characters. We got to learn about their relationships, about who they are in relation to each other, and also how they interact with Izzy throughout, because she is working kind of with the enemy. And so they're very standoffish in the beginning, and then she gets to know them throughout the books, and it's really nice to watch that relationship develop. But we also get to see a really good relationship built between Izzy and the main male character, Eric. Some things that might not be great for every reader, though, is that Izzy is not super confident in herself. And so there's a lot of imposter syndrome going around, not just her spy side of things, but also her position as the apprentice to the royal physician, and also questioning whether or not she's on the right path. And so I think this book can actually be great in parallel real life, because there are a lot of themes of accepting where you are, accepting who you are, and that your past doesn't define you, that really help her grow as a character, but also can be related back to real life. There are some trigger warnings to watch out for, so there's discussion of self-harm, abandonment, and grief throughout this, aside from just the pretty major imposter syndrome. And I will say there's a lot of humor that gets brought into some of those tense situations and moments, so if you don't like humor breaking up those tense situations to kind of diffuse them, then this may not be the book for you. But if you're like me and you like that magic system, you like a slow burn romance, you enjoy some political intrigue, some apothecary and medicinal moments throughout your fantasy book, and an emphasis on self-worth, then this book should be added to your list. I gave it 5 stars, and I hope if you read it, you do too.